Welcome back to Incremental, the Continuous Improvement Podcast. This is episode 113. I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing and Arda Cards.
And I'm Devin Bedoni of Like and Precision. And this week's quote: amateurs work until they get it right. Professionals work until they can't get it wrong. Author unknown.
Nice. I don't know if I really agree with that, but I do feel like it is very much... Well, maybe I do agree with it, actually.
I do. It took me a minute to think through it, and then I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what Toyota talks about is making the time and space and culture that when something does go wrong, it's not just like, oh, crap, how do we keep going?
Mm-hmm.
It's, oh, crap, let's stop and make sure that never happens again. Like that one thing can't go wrong again.
Yeah.
And over time, the effect is increased quality and increased productivity and increased, throughput. Like even though you're saying stop more, the effect is that you stop less over time.
Yeah, and I think it's also just a statement about like dedication to process.
Yeah.
Right? Like it is very easy to just tinker until something, and I'm sure I certainly have made plenty of things in my life where it's like, well, if you hold the rubber band just like this while you turn that screw, then it'll go.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And that's not what we're doing here.
Right.
Or it's not what we're trying to do.
It's what we're doing sometimes. Yeah.
There's certainly moments of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of funny. To step into the rant corner for a second. I was talking to a buddy of mine about sort of like lean and efficiency and then like critical chain and theory of constraints and like the numbers associated with organizations that kind of pursue those things almost smell of like snake oil. Because it's like, I think everyone's sitting there going like, okay, if there's a system that reliably gets people like 300% increase in profitability or size, depending how they're reinvesting over a few years, surely everyone would be doing it. Like, what's the rub? I think the rub is just that it's very hard. Maybe. Why don't more people...
I mean, it's like...
get into it. It's so weird. It's like people are just wasting a huge amount of time.
Well, I think a lot of people do get into it, for one thing.
And then just have it beaten out of them or something, or don't have space in their company.
Well, no, I mean, it's like most of the auto industry runs on these systems. So it's not like... Right. Like, and most of...
Is that true?
As I understand it, most of Japanese manufacturing...
Yeah,
runs on these systems. Like that right there is like a decent chunk of global like manufacturing.
And then that's just totally out of like public view.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just like reinventing the wheel on a recurring basis in a really crappy way.
Yeah, I think so.
It's kind of...
And I think there's a real cultural challenge, at least here. In
terms of like being an individual and like being inventive, or what do you think it's outside the scope of our expertise?
I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but lean manufacturing puts much more of a focus on the collective, and we tend to be a pretty individualist society. And also we are the nation of Henry Ford. Like, you grow up as a child thinking that mass manufacturing and batch production is like the quickest way to do things. Like,
right.
I learned that as a kid.
Yeah.
Damn. So we are, I think, definitely fighting an uphill battle in this country specifically in switching mindset.
Maybe we need to start an institute. No, I was sort of wondering about working in schools or something to like teach kids continuous improvement. I have no idea how I'd go about that, but it just seems like it would be so awesome.
Yeah.
I think they might be like troubled like problem children, because they'd be like, we can do this better. And like a lot of people don't want to hear that, especially from children.
It's true. Yeah.
Like, shut up, little kid.
You're doing that wrong.
Yeah. There's a lot of wasted motion.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's sort of my working theory as to why. And I think also it's just like, it is a lot of work. You and I and the circles that we tend to swim in are more on the like small business, like owner, operator, entrepreneur side of things. There tends to be a lot of just people running around with their hair on fire in that crowd.
Included at times.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's just really hard for people in that state to come up for air for a moment and be like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a bunch of extra work, even though like it is going to make for less work, as we have discussed over and over and
discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that moment of coming up for air and being like, okay, whatever, I'm in the ocean surrounded by sharks and one of my arms just fell off, but I'm going to just take a moment here and improve how my other arm works. It's just like, it's tough. It's hard.
Yeah.
So I think it's a rare individual who sort of has that, or individuals, depending on the company, but that have that kind of bandwidth or vision, or have gotten so far to the end of their rope where they're like,
all right, I'm not going to be able to continue.
Yeah, like I'm surrounded by sharks. They've already eaten both my arms and my legs, I guess. Might as well try and improve something, because we're going down otherwise.
I do think a lot of people, it seems like a lot of big companies make the switch only when they're like really in financial straits with no clear way out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, last ditch effort.
Right. Which is probably not the best way to go, but I guess it's better than nothing.
I suspect you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very odd. And it seems like it's just weird to me, like talking to so many people, and they've never heard of any of these things. I mean, I hadn't either. So, but then when you do talk about it, it's like, it just sort of seems unlikely that if that was true, they wouldn't be more prevalent.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of people's perspective.
I think the other thing is there's a ton of like clickbaity, quick fix content, and it's very easy to be like, I want to improve my business, I'm going to go on Google, and you watch some YouTube things, and then you like try a couple of them and you're like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, we talk about it being a lot of work, but also just, it's a lot to wrap before you do any of the work, the actual work of changing anything. It's a lot just to wrap your head around and just like comprehend the concepts.
Yeah.
And sort of approach your business holistically with all of these conflicting concepts held in your mind. And so that is like, you kind of, I don't know if I've talked about this before. My dad was really into West African music when I was a kid, and built instruments and like started learning a bunch of these instruments. And one of them was called the kora. It's like a harp. It's like a 21 stringed African harp. Apparently the way they teach is you learn the hardest song first.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Huh.
And like, as often you're getting taught as like a kid or a teenager, but still it's just like a kind of an interesting model where it's like, if you like, once you have like, it might take you a year or something, right, to like learn this song, but then after that you've like mastered all of the different techniques, and everything from forward is a breeze, and can be just is like refinement.
Interesting.
And there's a little bit of this that sort of feels like that, where it's like to really start, you have to wrap your head around some crazy stuff.
Right. And like really sit with that. And
and it's you can't really like just ease in and be like, well, I'm just going to reduce inventory and then we'll see what comes next. Right. Like that is a losing strategy.
Yeah.
So I think that's it, is you kind of have to like go sort of whole hog at the beginning.
That might be true.
It's not easy to.
It's weird. I don't know.
Tiptoe in.
It's funny doing like Arda. We got anyway. Sort of getting back into the startup world, and in the startup world, there's an idea of a lean startup. And in software development, there's like Kanban.
Right.
And most people have no idea where it came from.
Right.
I mean, it's all the same premise of like reducing WIP and then just like slowly reducing, well, ideally quickly, but sort of systematically through quick experiments, reducing the risk of the concept you're pursuing.
Yeah.
And doing that quick, like,
iteration.
What's the acronym? The 5 questions.
Who
knows?
The A3.
Yeah, A3. The questions on A3, like what is the Toyota Kata? What is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the current condition? I forget the exact order, but like what is the next one? What is the next thing you're going to try? What do you anticipate learning? And like, when are we going to be able to go and see?
Yeah.
I just listened to a podcast called Sold a Story about teaching kids to read. And since the 80s, there's been a slow move. They found that people who are very fast at reading don't really look at every letter. Oh, yeah. They're kind of just scanning over it, maybe like some context in the beginning. So they started teaching that as a way of reading.
Oh, all people do that, right?
Well, not if you're really bad at reading.
For sure.
And so they were sort of like teaching the people who are doing it really well to people who are struggling. And it was called like the whole language model of learning, of reading, or something like that. Turns out it's totally ineffective, because while that is what people who are really good at reading do, that's not how they got there. So actually teaching phonics and just like, what does this letter set make, like what, and then people can decode words, and then they get good at reading. And so there's actually like a significant crisis in like I forget what it is, like 70% of 4th graders are below level at reading in the US, like really significant impact. And a lot of schools adopted that method. And
interesting.
The crazy part and the relevance to this topic is
they didn't test it.
Well, if you apply those 5 questions right at the beginning, it's sort of like, okay, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Is there a significant problem in readership? Or right, like that would imply that kids are not learning how to read if we're going to change how everyone is learning how to read.
Right.
Not just like these kids are struggling. Like there was no, and then also having a like, when will we be able to go and observe the results?
Yeah.
There was none, like there was just no process. It basically sounded plausible.
Yeah.
Sounded compelling. It was like the new thing, and they had this whole vision of like kids curling up in like little reading nooks and really enjoying the story and being immersed in the story, and not just like, what sound does this set of 3 letters, right? Like that's pretty boring. And anyway,
interesting.
It just felt like that could have saved us quite a bit of pain if someone was like, okay, like what's the problem?
Yeah.
What's the current situation? What's the current state? What are we trying?
An unfortunate amount of that in education.
I mean, just across the board, I think people go like, what's the new initiative?
Yeah.
Instead of like,
what sounds cool?
Yeah. And then there's no process, and there's no like, what would success look like, and how will we measure if we're moving in that direction? And instead it's like, let's do all those things. Let's change how we'd run the whole company, because that sounds way better. Yeah. I don't know. Speaking of changing the company.
Yeah. You got something? Did you do anything?
Did I do some things? I did. Not as many like discrete kind of, I don't know. It's been a kind of a busy time. Not busy like we're not doing improvements, but we're just building Arda. So I don't know what part of that is the improvement. I sort of mentioned last week, working on the internal production processes and documentation. And so we've tried a bunch of methods of doing that, none of which have been completely flawless, I guess, or without significant drawbacks of just like what the interface is. But we just keep reimagining how it could be and trying it. And I think one of the things that's made us successful so far is being able to just test things really fast in software. Yeah. And so in the interest of kind of, PDCA, that's the, what's the TLA, the 3-letter acronym I was looking for. Anyway, yeah, so tried that.
Nice.
So far, all failures, not complete. I mean, a lot of learning from each one of like, oh, it does this well, it doesn't do that well. Oh, it means you have to drive the whole process like really top down instead of kind of like following each sub-assembly back up to its raw materials and documenting it that way. Anyway, a lot of ways to make it hard and confusing.
Yeah. A twisted web.
Yeah, it really is. And if you actually if you spend too much time it's kind of interesting. Like lean data management is like, if you don't need the data, don't have it.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to build very rigid systems where it's like, oh, we have complete process information about how to make a buckle. Well, what if we change that? Like no monuments, right? What if we change that process? Now, is it a huge amount of labor to redefine it? Now that means that most people are not going to actually go through and define their complete process.
Yeah.
Or they're going to hold it in their head that like, yeah, they say it gets sanded, but really that consists of 5 steps. All this stuff that's like, so we're just trying to not build a tool that's kind of crappy, I guess. Like it should be way better than a spreadsheet. Otherwise, just use a spreadsheet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. We just bought some stuff.
Nice work.
We bought more pin gauges.
Oh, cool.
So like it's been a slowly initially.
Do you just buy size by size or do you have a set?
We've been buying sets, and then occasionally we'll buy individuals when we need like half steps, like 5/10 steps.
Oh.
But initially we had just bought like the smallest range because those are like the holes that are very hard to inspect otherwise. And then the more we've used them, the more we've been like, these are very helpful. So
interesting. Because they inspect for a lot of qualities of the hole or what?
Just that there's no ambiguity. It goes in or it doesn't.
Whereas if you're like inspecting by by probing 3 points or something, or with a
I mean, I imagine that
gauge.
Using proper bore gauges does the same thing, but it starts to get very expensive to have a wide range, and it's very easy to set up a go no go scenario with pin gauges. Do
you have those handles where you screw 2 in?
We do, but we don't end up using them very often. I don't know why.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's pretty easy to just be like, oh, this is plus or minus 5. I'm going to grab the minus 5 and the plus 5 and take them over. And if the one goes in, we're good. And if the other one goes in, we got a problem. And then usually if we're like testing something out, we'll get a little more refined with it and figure out what size the actual hole is.
Sure.
To know if we're close to a tolerance edge. But
that makes sense.
So we'd had only up to like, I think 1/2 inch, and we're not quite up to 1 inch. As they get bigger, you get fewer and fewer per set. I think because like the size,
total weight or something.
Yeah, it's something like that. Like the size of the
that's funny,
of the packages are sort of standardized. So initially you get like 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, and then the next one is like 1/2 inch to 5/8, and then anyway, so yeah, bought more pin gauges. We're focusing on
what about that is improvement related?
Being able to manage quality. Yeah,
it's very improvement related. We added more cards into Arda in our small little shop. It is unbelievable how much stuff you need to run a business that you never think about. So like like things just keep coming up of like, oh, we need to order that. Yep, we don't have a card. Yeah, I don't know.
Cool.
Grease for the CNC is one of those. I mean, we did have a card, but it wasn't in Arda because we last ordered it, 1.5 years ago or something. Right. So
yeah. Yep. Also on the quality side, we bought a new surface finish tester, profilometer, I believe it's called. Yeah, same. Well, actually our old one died, so that was part of it, but got a new one that has better readouts and information and more reliable. The other one was like, I think this number's right.
Interesting. And is that a mechanical probe?
Yeah.
That's riding the surface?
Yeah, it gets dragged across.
And what is it measuring? Deflection or vibration? I guess that would...
Yeah, it's like a
speed.
Yeah, it like just drags across, and then you see a little waveform of.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
What it did on the surface.
Interesting. There was a book on forgetting what it was called, something like precision engineering, and at the end of it, like the last chapter was kind of basically like, so everything we just talked about is all fundamentally based on something we don't super understand. Not we understand it to some degree, but like with interferometry, where light bounces off a surface is sort of ambiguous. Like, what is it hitting?
Yeah.
Is it hitting the nucleus? Is it hitting like electrons? Is it like, and people have a sense of it, but it actually turns out it's like probability essentially. I mean, I'm not sure it's fully understood. It might be, I don't really know, but in that book, they're kind of like, where is it bouncing? Like those start to represent the limits of precision currently. Is like, if you don't know where the surface is, like what it's bouncing off of,
right? That's
the limit. But similarly, as you get a smaller and smaller probe tip, you get higher and higher, what's it called? The forces with like a cylinder deflecting the surface, or not Brunelling, but I'm forgetting the term. Anyway, as the diameter gets smaller, the deflection of the materials increases, and like at some point you're like you could be scraping the surface, and
just like the elasticity of the surface, basically. Yeah,
but there's like the way that behaves. So anyway, it's kind of funny. And then if you make if you made a super sharp point, you can detect smaller imperfections, but you're also scraping it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Ye old observation paradox.
Yeah, kind of something like that.
Huh, interesting.
This is a boring one and a horrible one, but it also feels so good. Getting rid of stuff. Just tools and materials I've accumulated. The worst ones are projects I wanted to do, and then it's like, okay, I've had this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Gotta move it along. And then I've been pricing it really low to just like, okay, get it out of here.
Yeah.
Which is sort of funny because it occurred to me, like, if I just listed it sort of, I mean, this would be absurd, but when I bought it at a price that I would be like, okay, if someone offered me more than I just bought it for, I'll sell it. Right. And then over the years, that price, like as you approach the date of like, I need this gone, it should hit that fire sale price, but I only get to listing it at the like, okay, like once I've identified that I don't want it anymore, I'm very eager to get it out. And I've been wondering if I should have sort of like a
shorter timeline.
Well, like a shelf where it go like, okay, I've listed it for a higher number, like market rate. I'm going to let it sit there. I'm going to put a date on. I don't know, but like, I just don't want to touch it twice. I'm like, get it out of here. And so cleared a bunch of stuff.
Nice. Love getting rid of stuff. It's my favorite lately.
That's awesome. It's not my favorite. I hate it, which is why I don't do enough of it. But it feels good to have, the inertia of like things getting stale. And every time you look at them, you're like, damn, when can I? Anyway.
Yeah. Also on the inspection side, we did some rearranging. We'd had like, what was it? We had a random toolbox that had all of our like gauge pins in their like cases stacked on top. And then that toolbox didn't really have enough room for other stuff underneath. And then we had a bunch of other inspection tools in a different toolbox. And then things always ended up on the surface plate during inspection. Parts, hand tools, etc. So we did some rearranging and we moved a larger toolbox that had a wood bench top next to the surface plate.
Oh, cool.
Quorum realized that the lids on all of the gauge pin containers came off and fit in the drawers perfectly, or relatively perfectly. So they just went straight in the drawers. So now they're off the bench top. The top drawer got all the other hand inspection tools that we have right now.
Very nice.
And now we have a workspace that's not the surface plate to work on
while doing
inspections.
So you just like open that top drawer and all your tools are there.
Yeah.
Get out the pin gauges you need.
Yeah, exactly. And most importantly, it's just a place to work that isn't the surface plate, which needs to stay open for doing actual inspection with height gauge and whatnot.
Interesting.
So that was very helpful, and we didn't have to buy anything. We just moved stuff around.
Living the dream. It's funny. Like I'm tempted to try to tie that back to lean, but it's interesting just having an ongoing process where that is improving and everything is getting a little bit of attention means you're not standing still, which is big. I don't know. I mentioned this last episode, but just like looking at factories that have been running for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's like, we know this because we both run shops, and this happens in our shops all the time where you keep looking at something and it's like, oh man, we really need to fix it. And then 3 months later, you're like, okay, yeah, we still need to fix it. And eventually it happens, but I could see how that could just pile up over years and years and years. And there's more and more inertia and nothing changes.
Yeah.
So it's cool to just, rearrange and stuff.
Yeah. A wiki.
Yes. Experimenting with a wiki, internal wiki, trying to really treat it as an experiment. So we built out a little thing.
How do you do that?
Okay, I'm calling it a wiki. We're building it. It's like your Airtable. We're building out a coda that is more about aggregating what we do. So like there's a link that goes to Arda. There's a link that goes to our SOPs. There's links that get like just trying to make one sort of dashboard for the company or something.
Yeah. I'm
not sure. Like, I don't think it's going to be the long-term answer, but I could be wrong.
That's basically what we have in Airtable, and it's been, it's not perfect, and it is so valuable. Yeah.
So, I would be excited if it is the answer.
Yeah.
So that's
like Coda allows you to like sort and rearrange by multiple variables and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that really helps with having a flat structure, but it's still readable.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're not like, I'm going to go click through 10 folders. You're like, I'm going to this tab and I'm going to scroll, but things are grouped.
Right.
Or you can search pretty easily. And yeah, ours is by no means perfect, but more and more stuff is getting in there all the time. And, it's cool. Like somebody came to look at this machine I'm selling. And he was like, oh, how do you do this on the control? And I was like, well, let's search. And then like popped right up. And he was like, wow, that's cool. I was like, yeah, it is.
And so yours is structured how?
Let me pull it up so I can say something that makes sense.
Like, I guess I'll just let you finish pulling up. In the meantime, we have been, so Sam built that, and then Sam also built out a bunch of QC SOPs.
Yeah.
Which I'm super excited about.
Nice.
And so that's sort of what drove it, I think. It's like we started just having a bunch of them, and now there's a place to go reference them.
Yeah, we call this our SOPs tab because that's how it kind of started.
Okay.
As like, this is where we're going to put SOPs. And then it very quickly became clear that having a place to put all kinds of general shop information was important. So in terms of organization, we're just grouping by one field. So you can just say like these are machining tasks, and those will all be grouped together. Then we have like templates and checklists, setup tasks. There's a whole section for laser engraving, ordering stuff, admin tasks. So like a lot of random, like what's our UPS account number? What do we do when we send a purchase order to the anodizer? Like what are the basic rules to follow? So there's a whole bunch of those different groups. And then within that, we just have like a title, which is helpful for searching.
Okay.
Title block, an area to put notes, an area that can be long form text.
Okay.
An area for attachment if you want to scan or take any photos. And then a QR code, basically.
And the QR code is for what?
If you want to like make a sticker and link back to it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which we haven't really used much, but I think eventually as we get more organized, that will come into play more.
Yeah.
And there's one here a field that says setup, but I have no idea what that is for. Someone stuck it there. I stuck it there. and
nice.
Someone had an idea. It's got something in it.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe I'll dig into.
There's some photos.
Maybe we can discuss what has worked well and what you said it's not perfect. So
it's not perfect.
As we're
just
at the beginning
in
of building.
Yeah. Like it's a fine balance. I think what's not perfect about it is that, it's not super partitioned, right? So like in the maintenance tasks, like if it started to get a lot more things in, like it can just be sort of like scanning through that group can be a little bit of a chore.
Yeah, it's sort of fun, but like similarly, as you make more and more designations, you're like, is it this or is it that?
Right.
Or is
it's
it
really easy to put things in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the search comes into play.
Yeah.
And so that's how we use it, basically. So what's one downfall, I guess, is if you name something in a way that's not intuitive to search. But also, if we go towards using stickers with QR codes more, that starts to be less of an issue. So that's the only thing that I'm like, I wish this was better. Is right, like they just go in the order they were created, basically.
Right.
Because I'm not sorting by some other feature or
sure, that makes sense. And then other places but you're normally going to search it.
Yeah, I guess you could set priorities where it's like, this is one that I come and use often. Put it towards the top.
Right.
That would be a simple thing that would be very quick to set up. But also that's not our bottleneck.
Right. Yes.
Not right now. We moved our printer station. So we got those 2 new printers, which I mentioned, and they were just kind of like off on a wall, stuck against a wall.
Okay.
So we kind of rearranged the shipping station a little bit and put them next to each other in a place that's central. So
okay.
I think that's going to be very helpful.
Just as you print more.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny every time I reduce the kind of barriers to using a tool or doing a process, it's amazing how much you do it. Like you shouldn't, but it just is how it goes. If it's hard, you put it off. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does us this week.
About do it. Thanks
all for listening. You can find me at Austere Manufacturing on the Instagram. Nope. Austere_manufacturing on Instagram.
Austere_MFG or manufacturing?
Manufacturing. Yeah. Just to make it, I think this is a good example of why standardization is useful. And then austeremfg.com on the internet and arda.cards on the internet and on Instagram.
And you can find me at likenprecision.com on the internet, Liken_MFG on Instagram, the pod at Incremental CI on Instagram, and the Patreon.
Check it out. It is in the comments of the
show notes.
There we go. Yep.
We'll talk to you soon.